Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I hope you guys had a good weekend. Had a chance to enjoy some of that sunshine. Some of you, I'm sure, still got patches of snow in your yard out there, in the shady spots especially. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to Monday morning. I know I'm on a little earlier than normal. It's a little easier to get everything organized working for Tawana today, but she will be back tomorrow. So the blog probably will be a little bit later than 9:06. But hey, it's all right. At least you guys know in this hour, I usually try to appear. All right. So hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to SnowTALK. I'm waving your all just Brian Good. Yes, it is SnowTALK, still the title. Although I may have to switch to Storm Talk here very soon, at least for a brief moment. I don't think we're done with SnowTALK. We're not to that point yet, even though Aaron feels that way. But I don't think we're there yet. Hang in there. But we will have more of these warm spells like we're about to enter now. So that's the theme. We've been talking about this for a while, so I don't want to constantly repeat what we keep advising or explaining about how this pattern will be. But yes, there will be these ups and downs, and there will be dramatic at times as the jet is going to be still very dramatic in how it's stretched out across the North American continent. And that's going to allow for these systems at times to root down. Can produce some heavy rain, thunderstorms, and then you get into a cold pattern right after one of those systems that lasts 2 or 3 days versus a week or 2 weeks. We're done with that. These cold snaps will have a brevity to them that is going to certainly help us in trying to get through any more cold attempts we'll have in the next several weeks ahead. But the warm spells, again, will be just as frequent. So it's not all bad news. It's very typical that we see this time of the year, so it's nothing earth-shattering. But this year, the call for spring has been more demanded than probably more than ever. As Kathy says, I am tired of snow. Totally understand. Hey, Wyatt, how you doing? Watching on Twitch this morning. We are on Twitch, by the way. So if you're in between playing Call of Duty, Fortnite, whatever you're doing, we're on here. So always be sure to tune in. Let's see. Cameron, GFS, hold on for a severe threat next week. I wonder how this will play out. Well, Cameron, we're going to get to that coming up in just a few moments. Okay, so let's get right to the snowboard, and then I'll get to some of your questions coming up here in just a second. The board itself, well, not overly exciting, right? Especially with this kind of a pattern. Still look at this brief mix type of deal for late Thursday. It's meh, nothing too exciting there. But next week, that's when I think we may have to start watching for perhaps some better opportunities to get some winter weather back in the area, at least snowfall-wise. We're going to get some colder days ahead, but they may be cold and dry the way it's looking right now. Okay, here's a look at the Ohio. A lot of you have been tracking the river conditions. The Ohio is now back within its banks. All right, it's behaving itself. It's good. And we do not have any heavy rain signal between now and into the weekend. So that's a good stretch for the Ohio to continue to get down to roughly, especially the upper gauge, will register 14 feet. Normal is 12. So it will actually be at a pretty good spot. We just don't want more rounds of heavier rain, especially rounds of heavy rain that are close together in time period. That's what we need to watch more than anything as we head into March. And that's possible. But I'm hoping the positive with these cold outbreaks that get involved at times in March after warm spells, that may help break up some of these heavier rain events where we don't have to worry about big time flooding. So there is a positive. There is a positive to getting these colder attacks because they allow for dry air to infiltrate the area too for a while. So I'm trying to spin into a positive. I'm trying there, guys. All right, so you can see the high clouds sneaking in over our heads. They're over behind me, over that way, into Indiana. They're moving over the TV station right now in downtown Louisville. We're going to see these throughout the day today mixed in. They're very high, thin variety. The sun can still get through it. So the southwest wind is the leader today, along with the sun, to allow these numbers to keep climbing. We're almost to 40. That seems exciting all of a sudden. We're almost at 40 at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's pretty impressive. We made it to 50 yesterday. In fact, look at the cold weather. The cold attack last week was so brutal after that jump into the 50-degree range with the heavy rain and flooding on Valentine's Day. Look at the range. We'd spent 4 days not above freezing at all, staying in the 20s. That is pretty impressive. But I'm going to go ahead and just say it now. And I've said this many times, but Valentine's Day is just cursed here for bad weather. Every year, something seems to happen near that day, but not on it. So I'll go ahead and say next year, Valentine's Day, it's going to have some active weather with it because it always seems to happen right at that point. Maybe winter is single. I don't know. And tries to seek revenge. We'll see. But this cold snap to that level of getting 4 days in the 20s, that's harder to do even in mid-February, and it will be even harder to do in March. All right. So there is a plus to the higher sun angle. It will fight against these types of cold outbreaks. You can still get them, but they're less severe each time. And this is when I enter the favorite time of year for me. Anyway, I love it. That's when you get your wet snows that are so pretty and they don't cause a lot of travel issues and they're gone. And you can get the car cleaned off. Then you're like 70 degrees in 2 days. I love that. Some of you I know probably don't like those swings, but I think it's kind of exciting. And anytime you get cold anyway, you want snow, protect the plants. As I'm sure you guys have them in your yard, daffodils are already popping out of the ground already. I'm surprised they're not blooming yet. But we need to make sure those get protected in these cold snaps. You need snow, otherwise you're going to lose those blooms, right? All right, so here we go. Let's get right into it. First off, today is quiet. We've got that nice southeast wind. You can just now start to see the high thin clouds. There is a front moving in the area tonight, but boy, this is not an impressive front. It's struggling here across the upper Midwest. I know it's kind of hard to see there, so let me switch over to just a regular view. As that front moves in tonight, it's going to have very little moisture with it, but a few sprinkles may get squeezed out. And that may be about, I would say, 20 hours or so from now. So after 2 o'clock in the morning, we may get some sprinkles. Not a big deal. So I just want to move on. Look at Florida. Whew. Florida. We haven't talked about active weather in Florida in a while, but they are a mess today from one end to the other. And even a severe threat. Couldn't even get an isolated water spout or a tornado there near Miami today. They're in a spot for that, but heavier rain even all the way into the Bahamas. So for those trying to start early spring break, and some I think are about to. When is spring break anyway? It used to be April when I was a kid. Now I think it's like, next week, March or something? A lot of schools have it. It never seems to line up anymore. It used to be JCPS used to line up with U of L. I don't know if that's still the case or not, but that's how it used to be done. Anyway, down there in Florida. Oh yeah, good point, Adam. Spring training down there as well. It's up to play baseball and that kind of a mess, right? So that's going on too down in Florida. But anyway, just kind of a mess with that system rolling on by. It's not going to be there all week, but for the next couple of days, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a mess. But our front is, again, very tame coming through. But notice on the radar, you see more green than you do the white and blue color, which would obviously indicate snow. So we can tell that, yes, it's been cold this morning, but we overall have trended to a better looking setup for the lower 48 than what we've had. All right, so what's in the short term? That front, we'll be tracking it, moves on down. This afternoon, we're in the 50s. I've got 56, I think, for a high today. We could overachieve. It depends on how thick these higher clouds are. We overachieved yesterday. We could easily do it today. Louisville always seems to overachieve. Or I should be more specific. Louisville International, Ali International, overachieves a lot on temperature. But anyway, 56, we may go a touch higher than that. Not a big ordeal. But tonight, these clouds will act as a blanket. So that's a good thing. That'll at least keep our numbers from falling down below freezing. But again, could squeeze out a few raindrops late tonight, very early tomorrow. Minor issue overall. Now, I am a little not concerned, but I am thinking in the back of my mind about the cloud cover tomorrow. As long as the cloud cover clears out tomorrow, we will have a chance to get into the 60s. If the clouds linger too long tomorrow, we may get stuck a bit cooler than that. In fact, maybe a lot cooler than that. So I'm not seeing a ton of data. I think it was only the NAM model that was kind of like, clouds may linger. NAM sometimes is pretty good on that. So I don't want to discount it. So yes, tomorrow, right now, based on the idea the clouds will clear, we'll get above 60. If the clouds get stuck here tomorrow, we will not get to 60. Is that clear? Type 3. Everybody good on that? You good on that one? Okay. So make sure I'm stating that. Right now, I'm more optimistic. I'm glass half full that we're going to clear out. So we'll go with the 60s and think positive there. Now, as we head into Wednesday, Wednesday's kind of one of those weird days here, guys, because it's going to be a warmer flow. This front coming in Wednesday does have a more of a kick to it than the one tonight, for sure. As it moves in, it's going to allow for a warmer flow of air to pump right into wave country. I've got 68 listed here for Wednesday. Now, that may be an early afternoon high or lunch. So my advice to you is, if you want to enjoy that warmer surge of air, plan something for midday or early afternoon. Because if you wait too long in the day on Wednesday, the front will arrive. We're going to become overcast eventually in the afternoon, and then a period of rain will come into play as we head into the evening. I'm hoping right now it'll skip rush hour. That's possible. It may be after that, but a period of rain now. It looks really heavy here. I don't think it's going to be a flooding event, but a decent round of showers, you bet, will come through. And if we get to around 68, I think we may have enough of a kick here in the front to allow for lightning. But this is what we call elevated instability, where it's allowing for lightning and thunder, but not exactly severe weather. So not to get overly technical, but it's certainly possible for lightning and thunder, in other words. So, but I don't want you guys to worry that we're having a severe weather outbreak here for Wednesday. The front's missing a lot that would be required for that, but it has enough to at least allow for a period of rain to move in as we get into Wednesday night as well. All right, now there is a gap between this round of rain that moves in and what happens on Thursday. There's a dry slot in this system, which is typical, right? In these bigger cyclones, you get the dry slot. We're on the front part as we get into Wednesday, very early Thursday. Then we get the backlash, upper low, that kind of drops down on Thursday. And this is where, if it can get cold enough and the showers are actually heavy enough, you can get ice pellets or perhaps some snow that could mix in here on Thursday. This looks very limited. That's why I said meh. When it comes to the potential, not impressive. The better moisture is certainly going to be up 71 heading into Ohio. But the more southwest you are, you may not see anything fall. But I do think if we're going to get anything, it'll be later Thursday or Thursday evening. We'll be above freezing. And I don't see the rates being heavy enough to cause any problems with snow right now. If this changes, there could be a grassy accumulation that would be the not worst case scenario, but it would be the most likely scenario that would happen in this as it passed on through. But right now, we are not expecting that. I would need a little more convincing because we're going to have such a warm period in advance of this. It's going to be really hard to reverse. The system just doesn't have a strong enough kick to it. In fact, we may easily on Friday jump right back up in the mid upper 50s or even close to 60 on Friday. So there is going to be a quick reversal because the system just doesn't have the cold air that typically would have when some of these systems passing through. All right, so that leads us into what looks to develop for a low or a clipper for the weekend. Olivia, I think it was you. Somewhere I saw your comment saying you heard the polar vortex is coming in this weekend. Well, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the setup into next week as well. Do a quick break. Let me get everything organized. You guys know how this works. Hang tight. Back in 30 seconds. Don't you go anywhere. I'll be watching. Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that. All right. Feel better now? Hope you had a chance to, we should call that just a coffee break or a potty break, whatever. All right. I hope you guys are doing well. Let's get right into how the weekend is going to play out. I mentioned that the polar vortex, comments about that coming our way. Well, yes and no on that idea. This is a very unique setup. We're going to have a clipper that is going to move through the Great Lakes. And normally they're like, ooh, a clipper. Okay, this could mean some snow coming our way, right? Well, no. This clipper is lopsided, as they do tend to be in this scenario, where it's got a very impressive dig into the Great Lakes. This will be a piece of the polar vortex. Yes, it will be quite cold dropping into Canada, but it doesn't have a chance to dive all the way to us necessarily. So it really is going to impact the Great Lakes more. But look at that snow band. This is actually a very impressive snow band Friday for the Great Lakes. Be interesting to watch this. But as it digs down to the south, right across the Ohio River Valley, it is going to be dry on its southern end, but it will allow for a very seesaw effect on temperatures. And that will give way to a windy scenario for both Saturday and Sunday. So Saturday, when the low passes by, it's going to be windy outside. We'll likely get into the 50s, but then on Sunday, we'll be on the other side of the clipper, and we will drop into the lower 40s in many cases on Sunday. And with the wind being over 20, 25, maybe 30 miles per hour on Sunday, the wind chill will stay in the 30s all day. So Sunday will certainly be a colder day than Saturday will be, but both days may actually feature sunny skies the entire time. It's that dry on the southern side of the clipper. And I have not seen any piece of data that suggests that this is going to dive far enough south to bring that snow band here. So I know you're going to ask that. I haven't seen anything for that. That's going to stay north. All right. So, but it does look windy, but I want to caution you on the temperature. You may wake up on Sunday and like, oh, it's pretty. The sun's out. It may be just like Saturday, but no, you open the door and you'll get a nice little wake up call there. So just kind of a temperature issue on the weekend. But then we get into next week. All right. So here's the deal next week. Yes, we do have an alert day out for this setup for next week. And here's why. There's not a lot of data I can really show you. I'm going to show you hints of it, but this is based on just pure forecasting and pattern recognition here of how these lows have been traveling across the lower 48. The signal for what will happen early next week is there for a stronger system to move on by. Now, when I say stronger, it may be a period of thunderstorms, some heavy rain, and maybe a couple warnings, something like that we've already kind of been through. And that may be the extent of it. I'm not saying that because it's so far out and we're watching that it's going to be a big, big system, the biggest of the year. Not saying that. It's just right now it does look like it'll have a little bit of a kick to it that we need to watch. And if we see that potential, you bet we're going to talk about it. Now, the setup is a little odd because we do have this little feature here, mini-me, this low pressure that will form near Oklahoma City at some point Sunday or Monday. All the data so far suggests this is going to dive toward Florida and the Bahamas, to where it'll be out of the way to then allow for the next low, which will be the main low, to develop into the plains. Now, the GFS is further north with this. The Euro is a little more to the south. That will matter. The track obviously is going to matter in a big way, not only on the track of heavy rain potential, but there will be snow on the northern side of this. There will be thunderstorms along its path. Storm Prediction Center is not touching this yet. Even the high-res data for severe weather can't really see the system entirely, so we're purely going on what the elements are based on the pattern, and that would feature round of rain, thunderstorms, and snow on the northern side. Where we fit into that element, I don't know entirely yet. I just know that impacts of one of those will likely take place as we head into Tuesday or Wednesday. Timing is varying 24 hours in the model. Right now, I'm thinking Wednesday is probably going to be more likely than Tuesday will be. So that's pretty far out. But that moves on by with a round of showers, thunderstorms, depending on the track, some heavy rain. We'll need to watch that. And yes, we could get snow on the back side of that system. But what is interesting about this particular system is it looks to be the one that will create a dumbbell effect once again, to allow for another round of cold air to flow in. And then we may be looking at more of a snow threat at some point later next week. So that's really beyond the 10-day, but it's on the snowboard for a reason, is that we could see the system be strong enough to shake things up again and allow for the cold air to drop down. So that's where we stand on that. We'll see if this system indeed leads to all the elements I just described. Here's kind of the snapshot of what it looks like on all of it. You see your strong thunderstorm threat, potentially right into the Ohio River Valley, very heavy rain or wherever the track will be, and then you got your snow on the northern side. That could shift several miles to the south, several hundred miles to the south, and same story up to the north. We don't want it going north. If it goes north, then the severe threat is certainly going to be more of a concern. We also don't want to go in straight through here because now we got to watch heavy rain. We don't want that heavy rain to track right into Ohio Valley. Don't see a lot of support yet for it to go south to where we're on the snow end. And it's because of mini-me, the little low ahead of it. As long as that tracks the way it looked like it would into Florida and the Bahamas, this should take a track that would be near or north of us. All right. But all those elements will be worked out in the coming days. All right. Type 5, if you're good on that. Everyone good on that. Carrie, how far in the future can you usually see a new system forming, or is a lot of future storms based on the pattern? We can see out, well, we can see some weather patterns, several months out, to be honest. But patterns do repeat. And there is a way to track low pressures. This is called the Rossby wave, not to get into the science, but for those of you who want to know more about it, the Rossby wave analysis is one good tool that can signal repeating patterns. Sometimes these low pressures that move through in, say, July can repeat themselves again in the wintertime. It's pretty fascinating to see how weather does try to give us a hint of what it's trying to do in the Northern Hemisphere. There are hints there. You just got to find them. And that's our goal as meteorologists and climatologists, is can we figure out the secret to all this and forecast really long-term events? We're getting to that point where it's getting better, to be honest with you. And this is one of those waves that has been showing up. Now, this one I've been tracking since Groundhog Day. It showed up actually in January is when I first saw this system that's coming in the first week of March, is when it caught my eye, and it has been consistent on the wave analysis. I just don't know the specifics again. We're just not getting in range, but I want to make sure everyone's aware that it is at least a system that will have some impacts in the area. All right. I don't get too much in the weeds on that, but I hope that makes sense. This is the, let me show you full screen. This is the Euro, by the way. Sorry, it looks all weird, but it's trying to figure out where the low will be, and those are all the plots where the range could be. It's liking St. Louis, if you look right in the middle, that's the mean of it all, but it certainly has the low placed north and south, doesn't know yet on speed 2. So anyway, that all will have to be worked out. So what about the cold weather side of things? Well, I've been watching what we call the MJO, which is watching the Indian Ocean weather patterns. I know I'm getting way out there, but at least for those that love the deep science, so you know what this is. Phases 1 and 2 is where it's going, and if it holds on phases 1 and 2, that is a colder pattern coming our way. And sure enough, when you look at the longer term, I tell you what, that Hudson Bay low just does not give up. It's still very much a stretched out polar vortex type of setup, becoming less and less impactful, I'll grant you, as we get into March. But as long as this is still sitting here, we can tap into it, and the colder air can drop down. It will fight warmer battles now. We're getting that time of year where warm air is going to keep fighting back. But as long as this is here, we have to at least count for the idea that winter is not done, and we can still get some cold attacks and still get some snow chances. All right. There you go. As we head into the entire 10-day, again, 56 today. There we go with the 60s tomorrow, and then we'll get into hopefully 68 before that drop happens as we head into the nighttime hours. And then the weekend, there's that seesaw effect on the numbers, 50s to 40s. And then we've, again, got next week flagged anyway as your chance to get a little more impactful system. The systems between now and then don't look to be impactful with any of those elements, but as we get into next week, the chances go up. All right. So I hope everyone is good on that. Let's see. I hope I got everyone's question. I'm all over the place. Mid-March, what's everyone talking about mid-March? Shauna Sawyer. If there's an issue on severe weather for mid-March, if that's what you're referring to, there is a signal, yes, for mid-March for severe weather. That's too far out right now to discuss in the 10-day, obviously. But yeah, mid-March, yeah, that is showing up for especially the plains, to be honest with you, more so than the Ohio Valley. But there is a severe signal in mid-March, but that's not unusual. I feel like we always have a signal in mid-March of something, right? Another first day of spring on the 20th. Let's see. What are your thoughts on the severe weather predictions? I have not seen a lot. I saw someone mention Reed Timmer's discussion of the tornado count. I mean, that's his scale of doing it. I mean, the Ohio Valley is things repeat, guys, and as long as things are not going to change, yeah, we're going to see more storm systems that will have thunderstorms and heavy rain. So I can't argue against that. How will that go into the summer? I don't know, because I just looked at the new update for for El Nino, La Nina, and normally we see these kind of flip, right? You go from La Nina, neutral, then El Nino, or like last year we went sharply in the other direction from El Nino to La Nina, went straight and dived right into it. The latest outlook is flatlined. There's not a whole lot of support for either one for the rest of the year, which is interesting because then we're opening up the door to other elements that could influence our weather. And boy, that's going to be much harder to predict, especially when it comes to hurricane season. It's going to be a challenge, but may impact the severe weather season as well. So there are a lot of challenges down the road on that idea. I like seeing the 50s and 60s showing up. Me too. You know, I love snow, guys, but I love the warm pattern there. Carrie, you did predict a mild, rainy winter. Well, I didn't predict a mild, rainy winter. Our snowfall forecast, no doubt, was off. The amount of cold absolutely was off, but I did not go with the warm, rainy idea. I wasn't sold on that. And if you remember that one graphic that I always tell you I have, that I put up there that warned that there are elements to watch if things flip to the cold side, what you need to be aware of. And a warmer Alaska was one of them. And the cold air snowpack being built in our northern parts of the country, those are all elements. If they start to develop, then forget the winter forecast. It's going to flip to cold and snowy. And those elements ended up happening. Can't always see them happening, but boy, when they're very good indicators. Once you start seeing those take place, then you're like, uh-oh, we got a problem. And that's kind of how our conversations were in the weather office as we got into the end of December and January. Is like, oh, we got a problem. Things are locking in. And it's interesting, pretty wild. I love it. I think weather is frustrating to forecast, but at the same time, it is fascinating. If you can sniff out some of these patterns, it becomes very, very interesting. And I focused a lot of my passion in college on climatology more than really meteorology, to be honest. I love climatology. And it's because I really want to understand how these patterns repeat. Long-term is methane. And I have seen signals show up. I don't think it's ever going to be perfect because of the chaos theory. It can't be perfect. It can't be 100% accurate all the time. The chaos theory prevents that. Can't help that. That's the world that we live in. But we can get close. We can get close. And I think we are. I hope you guys have noticed that anyway, that the sniffing out these bigger systems has been a little easier to do. All right, I'm rambling now. Joseph, I'll get your question here. How long until water levels turn to normal? They are back to normal for most of the rivers. I think there's a couple downstream on the Ohio that are still up. But overall, I think they're all within their banks. Now the cleanup is happening. I think they're still asking for volunteers, by the way, for the Ohio River at Waterfront Park. I'm not sure which. I'm sure it's Metro government, but you need to check and see who's doing that if you wanted to help out, because it's a mess down there, guys. It is a mess. A lot of logs and debris on the Great Lawn especially. All right, I'm going to end it there for now. I got to get going, but if you guys have any questions, let me know. I'll try to keep checking back on this when I can, but we'll just see what happens for next week. Worry about that later. Let's enjoy the warm spell we've got for the next couple of days. That should be the focal point, and I hope that you're going to have plans to be outside and do that. Take care, guys. I'll see you on the flip side.